Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third and final day of the Clutch Chess Tournament. The four best chess players in the world, Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana, and none other than the world champion himself, Gukesh, competing for massive prize money and massive stakes. It's a 3-day tournament, as I said, and the first 2 days, a win was 1 point, 2 points, and now today a win is 3 points. Magnus Carlsen leads the tournament. Fabiano Caruana is very close. Hikaru and Gukesh are looking to catch up. Here we go. Would Magnus Carlsen come to the third day of this competition and put to rest all of the discussion about how close of a tournament it is? Gukesh beat Magnus famously earlier this year in Norway Chess, the table slam moment. Then he defeated him in Rapid, and he kept making news. But Magnus has struck back consistently in St. Louis. We will open things up with Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and a Spanish. Gukesh playing the Spanish, going back to a4, bishop to e7, and this game actually looks very, very similar to the game that they played in Norway Chess earlier this year. It's okay if you don't remember that. Don't worry about it. But the Spanishes are very mysterious. White does not put the knight on the traditional square of c3, looking to put it here, and the position Magnus goes for has h6, stopping knight g5 ideas, rook e8, and bishop to f8. Very, very slow variation. This bishop will support the center. Maybe later black will succeed in playing the move d5, or Gukesh will play the move d4 himself. And now white has a very pleasant position. d5 is much harder to pull off now because white also puts pressure. So Magnus has to outplay the younger man, Gukesh, from this position with the black pieces. He begins by trying to grab his bishop, which Gukesh politely refuses to give him. And now we have knight c4. So baiting white into launching some pawns on this side of the board, preventing white, obviously, from moving the bishop, although he never really had any plans to do that. Gukesh plays b3, and Magnus repositions the knight to the b6 square. C-pawn is mobile, and it can move forward or go to c6 if it would like. Gukesh plays a4. We have a trade, and now we have a5, not allowing white to make any more progress on that side of the board. Notice, by the way, Gukesh has not spent a particularly large amount of time. Bishop d3, looking for bishop b5. Magnus plays queen c8. An improving move, maybe bishop a6, maybe looking in this direction, maybe supporting c5, just a very flexible move. d5 now, closing the center completely, which Magnus immediately attacks. Gukesh plays bishop to e3. This move is given a double question mark, because actually Magnus can completely ignore the attack on this knight and take in the middle and then take in the middle again. Double question mark is harsh. But Magnus doesn't think for particularly long. He's a simple person, kind of like you and me. He's like, my knight is hanging. Gotham always says in his videos that you can move a piece that's under attack, and that's what I'm going to do. Which just shows you that Magnus needs to watch a little bit less Gotham chess content, but, you know, he can't stop himself, and neither can you. c4 from Gukesh. The bishop goes to a6, putting a little bit of pressure. It's a very balanced game, but from this point forward, the graph of the game, the graph, like right now it's equal, just begins sloping like this. Gukesh basically starts skiing downhill. First things first, obviously everything normal, but this is number one. Apparently putting the queen on e2 is not good. Apparently you needed to play a plethora of other moves, but this is not the right placement for the queen, and very quickly Magnus begins taking over the game on the queen side, targeting the bishop, the pawn, and the other pawn. Gukesh takes the knight, but now he gives Magnus the bishop pair, and doesn't really have much in the center other than a lot of space. Magnus very quickly plants the rook on the b4 square. It's going to be impossible to get rid of this rook. I don't know how you're going to get rid of it with a knight. You're going to have to make at least 3 moves. Even more. So the bishop goes back to f1, and now a great move from Magnus g6, completely locking down this side of the board, so Gukesh absolutely can never get in. Maybe you have h5, and maybe you have bishop h6. Just beautiful ideas being played here. Queen c7, a flexible move. Rook d2, Gukesh doing his best, but now Magnus cracks the center open, because either you take like this, and you allow, obviously, the pawn to come through, or you take like this, and allow the pawn to come through. And that's exactly what happens. Look at this. You have to take back with one of the pawns. Magnus, just a machine. The bishop reactivates, maybe going over here as well. Queen back to c1. Here comes rook c8 supporting the pawn. And just a waiting move. He didn't have to go bishop g7. He could have made a lot of moves. Gukesh trying, but yeah, now whenever this bishop is going to get active, it's going to be really bad news. And this game was honestly a little bit like an anime fight. Like, I don't know, Naruto, for example. Look at the knight on h1. I mean, it is a miracle that bishop to h2 is not mate. Magnus Carlsen marching down on both sides of the board. This is an absolute masterclass. This is a statement of a game. g3, the bishop goes back, patient, queen b4, and it's literally over. Gukesh in this position resigned the game. With all of these pieces on the board, if you actually count the amount of things that have been taken, only 3 pieces per side have left the board. This is the starting position. Both sides start with 18 pieces. There are 13 pieces on the board here. If you don't believe me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Magnus beat him on a nearly completely full board. This might have been like the nicest game Magnus has played this year. Complete domination, going back to the same type of opening game, the same type of style of game they had in that Norway game that Magnus ended up blundering late, and Gukesh fought back. Just a breathtaking game, really. So now Gukesh has to strike back. Like now Gukesh has to strike back in the very next game, or at least, you don't remember that's 3 points, right? And I think now Magnus has won 4 games against Gukesh in St. Louis. Which is, yeah, that's, I mean, right? That's, if I'm not mistaken, 1 on the first day, I think 2 on the second day. Yeah, and now this one. So e4, e5. Now we have a Spanish the opposite way. a6, bishop goes back. Gukesh plays d6, and Magnus just plays a super sideline. I mean, c4 is some rare move. Gukesh puts the bishop on g4. I actually thought this was an English opening at first because I booted up the game in the opening. I was like, oh, they played in English. Nope. Knight to f6, h3, and we get a position where black has given up the light squared bishop, but you have ideas to put this knight on d4, and Magnus is like, bring it on. Try to get the knight on d4. Gukesh plays g6. Magnus plays h4, h5. Very flexible game, and then later we have this, and Magnus breaks open the center with d4, and we have a trade. So this is the position that we have to work with. White is looking to castle. I actually really like black's position, I have to say. Queen d7, bishop g7. Like, I would like to play this position with black or with white. Gukesh ends up going bishop g7. You can't quite take on c6. I think maybe you can. Okay. Magnus is going to show us that you can. I mean, Gukesh could have, of course, played it more solidly. I think he didn't like bishop g5, bishop f6, that Magnus would get in on the dark squares faster. So he gave away the pawn and went queen d7. And Magnus was like, well, you gave me a pawn, so e5 defends the pawn, and on the next move, I'm going to castle my king. Defend the knight. Defend the knight, not the pawn. And so now, black here can castle or play a couple of moves. He goes queen g4, which is one of the best moves. Magnus playing queen d5, very confident. King is in the middle. King is wide open, but it can't really be attacked. And now Gukesh castles. Yeah, Magnus actually just castles as well on the 18th move, like we teach all beginners. Very, very tense position. A lot of interactions of the pieces, but he did a great job securing his king. And now that his king is safe, he'll bring the bishop out, he'll bring the rooks, and slowly black's position will kind of fall apart. Already the best move is very mysterious here. One of black's best moves is knight to a4, going for a pawn that looks like it makes absolutely no difference. Actually, the idea is not even to go for the pawn, it's to go back to b6. To attack the queen and the pawn, right? This is just a free pawn. Taking this obviously loses the knight. Another idea here is rook a e8, not to be confused with rook f e8. Gukesh takes a free pawn, and apparently that gives Magnus all of the momentum in the game. Takes d6, g3 now, bishop g5. A lot of different moves are good here. Bishop g5 is good. And Magnus goes bishop e7, rook c8, and enters this position where the pawn is under attack and this pawn is trying to promote. It's still equal, but it's very, very tense, and black has to play bishop f8 or knight to d3. Gukesh goes aggressive, knight to d3. Best move, centralizing, looking to potentially infiltrate, looking to cut off certain important squares. You play the move f5, and one move by black is just losing on the spot. I mean, basically here with black, you kind of had to wait a little bit. Maybe rook e8, kind of keep the tension, but you feel like you're about to lose this pawn, and it doesn't feel particularly good. That's why rook e8 was important, but even rook e8 is a little mysterious, you know, because while it does pin the pawn, and you're going to lose this, I mean, it feels like you're going to lose this just a matter of time, but this move, simply too many weaknesses, and Magnus picks up the pawn, knight takes d5. Probably Gukesh thought he was winning this pawn and he was all right, not realizing that he's actually just losing. The knight's hanging, obviously not quite because the rook hits the knight, but everything in black's position is weak. And after this move, knight d8's very fancy. We also had rook d1. Magnus Carlsen consolidates, swarms, and you can't even take this back because you would just get mated, bishop h6 and rook e8. So Magnus, 2 rooks, rook g7, rook h7. It's just mate. King takes. You have mates all over the place. This is hanging, by the way. But if you take it, I take, and then I'm going to go bishop h6 and knight f6, and or knight f6 and then bishop h6, or knight f6 and then rook h7, and you simply lose. Magnus Carlsen beats Gukesh 2-0 to start the day, roaring up the leaderboard, 6-0. Each of those wins was worth 3 points, and I think he beat Gukesh 5.5 out of 6, which just shows that in rapid, he is still a monster. I mean, really, there is not much else you can say. 5.5 out of 6. That's very, very convincing, you know? And to be fair, Gukesh had some good games, and also he did beat Hikaru and Fabi, right? So we will track that, and he did lead the tournament after the first day. Now, Magnus then sits down to play Fabiano Caruana. Very few people can say that they swept Magnus in a mini-match. You can't say it. Literally. Not a single person watching this right now can say it. Unless Fabi's watching, in which case, I don't know what he's doing with his time, but... So Magnus sits down, right? And he's like, all right, yesterday I lost to Fabi 2-0. That would be devastating for my standings and chances of winning the tournament. So let's play a chill game. We get what's called a Maroczy bind. M-A-R-O-C-Z-Y. It's not actually pronounced Maroczy, but I'm American and I can't pronounce Hungarian words. Actually, in my defense, nobody can pronounce Hungarian words, okay? Nobody. Not even Hungarians. That's how mysterious the language is. Bishop b2. Takes, bishop g7. And this is an opening where white kind of plays a little pyramid setup. Keeps it, well, not pyramid. Like, let's say, I'm thinking like that, but there obviously is no tip of it. And black tries different, instigations, like trying to put the queen out or whatever. The bishop, the knight wraps around. Maroczy is one of the most mysterious openings in chess. Mysterious setups, I should say. But let's see how Magnus, puts on a masterclass. Generally speaking, white is happy with several waves of trades, but you have to do them at the right moment. Like, if black plays knight d7, we're going to trade the dark squared bishops, for example. Queen goes to e3, knight d7. And Magnus decides, okay, we're going to try to trade on my terms. And if you take me here, we're going to try to trade on my terms once again. So we have bishop takes. Then we take on g7. And this is the endgame that Magnus goes for. He goes for bishop versus knight with pressure here, slight space advantage, disallowing some b5s. And this is the position. But objectively speaking, this is equal. You just need to know how to play the ensuing Maroczy endgame. So queen b6, no queen trade. You see, we try to trade on our own terms. Knight to f6, rook to d4 centralizing, and now rook d1 and g4. Clearly, if Magnus made this up at the board, this is brilliant. But I have a feeling he knew this was a key idea. And the point is, if h6, you're actually just going to go h4 and g5 anyway. You're going to try to kick the knight around to weaken the king and soften up the attacking possibilities. Very high-level understanding. h4, not even g5 just yet. Rook e8, now we go g5, we kick the knight back. And the thing is, we are still putting endgame-style pressure. Like f4, for example, would stop the knight from ever going to e5, and then h5 and h6 would go for mate. So we're kind of doing both. We're trying to have our cake and eat it too. Queen c7, now we play queen e3. Black going for typical Maroczy counterplay. We play b4, not the best move, by the way. He could have played cb5 there, but Magnus trying to keep it very, very chill and still looking for long-term endgame advantage. Now he has an outside b-pawn. Instead of that, when b5 was played, he should have just taken. but he didn't like the destabilizing of his position. I mean, that's fine. When Magnus makes these moves, I respect them. Look, we are still looking at endgame pressure, right? this under pressure, the outside pawn. So still we're trying to combine like the potential attack with the endgame pressure. But I gotta tell you, like, Fabiano has outmaneuvered him here, and these advanced pawns are not assets for white. They are a liability. So Magnus needed to destabilize the position. And this is a very little lesson here. Like, when you're under attack, creating confusion. That is really what Fabi went for here. Excellent, excellent job. But unfortunately, with Magnus, the game is never over. And the move h6 gives all of the momentum right back. Magnus is now a pawn up in an endgame. He's got him right where he wants him. It's not even clear where Fabi goes wrong in the scramble, but he's losing. He's just losing here because the king is going to walk over to the pawn. And yeah, that's the end of the game. Rook c5, king d5, b6. And this is the end. Rook check, king a6, rook check, king b6, king a7. Also, you can block with the rook whenever you want. Like, for example, whose move is it? Rook b1 here and rook a5. And this is, it looks like a draw, but it's not. Why is this not a draw? You promote to a bishop, and this is a losing endgame. It's actually kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, only if the pawn was here. If the pawn was back, this would be a draw. But because black is out of moves here, it is over. The opposition... Well, actually, no. I shouldn't say that. This would be losing, you know, but black would move the king to the other rank and then get the opposition. Don't worry about it, all right? This is, opposition is always losing, but if it was white's move here, it would be a draw. But actually... if it was white's move here, because the pawn is so far advanced, it wouldn't be a draw. It doesn't matter. You're going to hang your queen on move 15 anyway. Don't worry about it. Magnus just beat Fabi, okay? So he has now 9 out of his first 9, which is cool. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard to stop. So now Fabi has to play for a win in the second game. We have another Spanish, or Vanish. Bishop to a4, knight to f6. Castles, right? Takes. Rook e1. Magnus is going into lockdown mode. We got 9 points to start the day. Every win is 3 points, in case you forgot, in case you're sitting going, why is every win 9 points? It's just, I don't understand. I don't know why you're British. That was like the 3rd worst British accent anybody has ever done. But when you sound confused, you're British in my mind. I don't know. You don't sound Italian. Like, I can't imagine you sitting there like, but why is it a 9 points? Win is a 1. We are not playing a football. Pawn takes. Queen takes. Castles. I don't imagine you being Southern, like from the US either. 9 points. I thought they just get 1. Bishop f4. Knight c5. Magnus kind of trying to lock it down. Pretty solid position. Berlin structure. Got these boys over here. Position's equal, but Fabiano has to play for a win. So at some point, he will take some risks. He invites the bishop. He plays c4. And now Magnus is like, well, if he's going to take a lot of risk in this game, I'm going to get back at him at some point. Yeah, that's ugly. And here comes b5. I mean, the hesitation here. The bishops are about to slice and dice. Fabi doing his best, but you can just ignore this. You can take on c4. c3 is incoming. I mean, white is about to get absolutely blasted here. So he moves the queen. Rook e8. It's really difficult in chess to win a game on demand. Like, it's not easy. You know, and the reason for that is the other guy is just going to try to be as boring as possible. So you have to take absolutely massive risk, but it has to be calculated risk. And if it's not calculated risk, you're going to wake up in a position and you're going to have 1 less rook than your opponent. And Magnus now just has to convert the position. He has a rook for a knight. He is still maybe not even totally winning here because all the pawns are on the same side. But the thing is, when you have a rook for a knight or something like that and a lot of pawns, when there's a lot of pawns, you have much higher winning chances. When there's less pawns, your winning chances are lower. Fabi obviously thought that he was playing this position for a draw still, and it looks very decent, but it's actually not. It's not very decent because black's pawn is very strong, and the rook will always serve as kind of like a baseball bat, just kind of hitting the king around. And before you know it, the pawn's going to get really close to promoting. And then it's going to get so close to promoting, there's nothing you can do about it. And the bishop, I mean, not just a defender, an absolute unit, stopping the pawn. And it takes some 60-something moves, but Magnus gets a totally winning position. There's nothing the pawn and the knight can even do. Fabi goes down, and Magnus Carlsen just won his first 4 games and won the tournament. So, that's that. All right, you can stop watching now. You can click on another video, but I will end this video by showing you 3 really, really epic games. They did not impact the standings as much because Magnus showed up and got 12 out of his first 12, and he beat Gukesh and he beat Fabiano. Yeah, that was that. Now, very quickly, like I said, I'm gonna show you 3 very cool games. In the last game of the entire event, Hikaru was, he was playing against Magnus, and he could have tried to play for a win to get second. He was trying to get second place. Ultimately, they had a 4 knights opening, and Hikaru played this move, knight to d5. This is a gambit line. It's a line where, you try to get the opponent to take you, you simply lose a pawn on e4, and something like this happens. And Hikaru put a lot of pressure. It looks like you're just throwing haymakers at the opponent, like down the middle with the bishops, but obviously a player with Magnus's caliber will kind of trade off the position and defend it very well, and we just have, this endgame where white has some pressure, but nothing substantial. I actually didn't quite understand what Hikaru did here. I didn't know why he played the game like this, but as it turns out, Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky was almost a specialist in this line. He played this line quite a lot, and so Hikaru's paid tribute, played this tricky line. Magnus knew everything, and ultimately the game ended in a draw. So that was very nice from Hikaru, and it still doesn't feel like quite a real timeline, but hopefully we keep getting some of these small things. Throughout all of our journeys in chess and all of our involvement in chess in some way and following of these events. So that was very nice, and I would like to show you 3 games because these games were really, really epic. Hikaru Fabi. So this was a Sicilian defense. It was an Alpin, and the opening is not the most important. Fabi in this game played very aggressively with black, and he, chopped down the bishop. And from the opening, Hikaru made a huge mistake around here. Not a mistake, but a misjudgment of the position. And Fabi was just attacking. He had queenside pressure throughout this game. Like, look at this. I mean, it looks like white is just a move away from getting mated. Fabi doing absolutely everything he can to double up, like push the piece. Fabi is just straight up 2 pawns. Fabiano Caruana is up 2 pawns here. The position is -5. If Fabi plays rook b2, now if Fabi watched more of my channel, which we said earlier he probably doesn't, he would know that I'm famous for sacrificing the rook, and rook b2 just wins the game on the spot, because after king b2, rook b8, it's a forced checkmate. After queen f2, you block somehow like this, queen f5, and you have to lose a rook. And if this, queen f5, and you have to lose a rook. You have to lose a rook on d3. Fabi doesn't sacrifice his rook and tries to put some, long-term pressure with rook b8, but now the game gets completely insane. Slowly, Hikaru gets the game into a time trouble situation. Not only does he get it into a time trouble situation, he roars back to complete equality. He opens the attack on Fabi's king, queen g4. Now it's a back and forth game, both guys with a minute on the clock, and all of a sudden, we get a beyond meat stock market spike, not financial advice. All right, queen to f5. Hikaru's winning if he plays queen to h2. It goes absolutely parabolic. Then it crashes on the very next day. But that's a current events joke for anybody paying attention. Queen h2 was apparently winning. It's not really clear why. Queen h2 followed by queen g2 followed by rook f2. You have to go here, here, threaten the queen, and then kick the queen out somewhere like to e6, and then restart the attack. And Hikaru was winning. He doesn't see this sequence. And around here, I was like, man, this, like, anybody can win this. I mean, both guys have 3 passed pawns. Have you ever seen a position with 6 passed pawns on the board? I don't think so. Fabiano running the king around, and suddenly he's completely winning again. Why is he completely winning? He can run the king to f6, and then run it to f5, and white runs out of checks while rook d1 and e2 is unstoppable. Fabiano then proceeds to make a little bit of a mistake, but his pawn is on e2, rook d1 is always coming. Hikaru now has to kick out a window for the king. We have rook d1, king a2. The black king goes running, unpinning itself. We have queen h4 check, g5, another check, and the king is running across. He's running across the tundra. Hikaru at some point gets back to equality. Fabiano makes a mistake. He gives a check, and now here, white has to play the only move. Rook takes pawn, losing the rook completely. But the point is, there is no more queen b1 check. If the capture happens, then you go to h8. So seeing that queen b1 was coming, Hikaru gave a check, and suddenly there are no more checks, because after queen b5, there is rook to b6. Hikaru is losing. Queen b1, rook d3, and the game is over. He has to lose his queen, and Fabiano Caruana gets the win. And that was just one of 3 games I wanted to show you at the end. First of all, there was that. Second of all, we had the matchup in Hikaru and Gukesh. So here's what happened. Gukesh played into a Sicilian defense. Hikaru was playing the accelerated dragon quite a lot. We actually saw this a lot. We even saw Fabi play this. So we have Gukesh also playing the same setup, which is the Maraxi. Now, watch as Gukesh just plays very principled chess in the center, trading, relatively straightforward, game, getting a nice little positional advantage. Black has doubled H-pawns, and white has very powerful knights. Gukesh playing excellent. Excellent is actually an understatement, because very quickly, he's going to be up 1 pawn, and in a couple of moves, he might win a second one, and he does. Gukesh simply has 2 extra pawns and a completely winning position. Hikaru has a little bit of pressure over here, but if white consolidates this position by bringing the knight back, stopping the threats, and simply promoting these pawns, he's going to win. Rook b1, a3, the knight comes back to f6, Hikaru plays knight b4, and now the winning plan here for white is to trade the rook and push the pawn. I know it seems ridiculous, because obviously black is threatening this. Well, Gukesh plays this move first, and the difference is that after rook d1, this pawn is being pushed, whereas if you had taken, the rook would have needed to go back, and that one move apparently changes the entire game. I don't know how Gukesh was supposed to know that. Suddenly, Hikaru has equalized the game, and suddenly, Hikaru is winning. Out of nowhere, 2 pawns down works magic, because that's literally what he does, and he's winning the game. The pawn promotes first. What? How does he do this? Knight to h7, knight to f6, the king is on h8, rook f7. It looks like you are mating. Knight e4 check. Check, deflecting the knight away from checkmate, giving black time to queen. He comes back, but now it's Hikaru's turn for checks, and let me tell you, getting bulldozed by a queen, not particularly pleasant, unless you're into that kind of stuff. King to g4, rook to g2, queen e2, give some more checks. You couldn't take the queen, it was pinned. And the game ends just barely. Just barely it ends. You can't keep checking. I'm going to check you. I'm going to kick the king away. And Hikaru beats Gukesh. And the last game of the tournament that I would like to show you is this mind-bending game between Gukesh and Fabi. It started out with a relatively normal, opening by white. I can't say the same for black with the move b5, c5, all good, normal stuff. Pawns were traded. I mean, this was the last game of the entire tournament. So, these guys could have made a quick draw and gone home. And for Fabi, that would have been down the street. And for Gukesh, that would have been like a 10,000-mile flight home to then play the World Cup, which starts in a few days. Anyway, not particularly important. Gukesh could have played this game very boring, but that's not his style. He chucks the pawns. He learned from the previous game. He doesn't need any pawns. And now he's just going to go attack Fabi. Queen g4, knight d6, queen e4. He's just going for it. Fabi is trying to queen a pawn. Gukesh is going for checkmate f5. Sacrificing everything. If you take, there is queen d5. Fabi, like I said, just trying to queen the pawn. Now Gukesh locks in, spends almost... No, here he spends like 2 minutes. And of his 2 minutes and 50 seconds, he goes down to 5 seconds on the clock and plays rook f1. Fabi here could have played a couple of moves. He tried to kind of bluff his way into something, and he played a2, which apparently is a mistake. He needed to play like rook a6 or rook a5, trying to get the rook involved with some stuff. He goes a2, which is a very natural move, trying to make a queen, and knight f7 arrives, wrecking the black position. You can take the pawn and the knight in many different ways. All of them lead to something. Pawn takes f5, and queen d5 appears with discovered attacks on the king, with a hanging knight. I mean, it looks like you can play a1, but if you do that, I go rook a1, and I give you this check, and you can't run away. You can never go to g7 because I'm going to win your queen. So here, queen d7, and I mean, it looks like Gukesh is just winning the game, but he's not. He's not. His king is stuck. If the king goes to h3, it's mated in one move by black. If it goes to h1, queen a8 from the opposite side of the board. Can you imagine? So he goes here, check, and now it looks like he can run this way. It looks like in this position you can't go to d3 because the queen comes in. Once the queen comes in, not good. Why can't you go to d1? Check c2. Why can't you do this? Queen c5. The black queen is ready to strike at all spots. It has a spot ready for the white king to be smacked around on, you know? And you can't cross. And because of that, the white king has nowhere to go. And the game ends in a draw. And that means that Clutch Chess is finished. And your total scores are Magnus Carlsen with 25.5 points. On the last day of the event, he got 14 points. 14 out of a possible 18. He won 4 games and made 2 draws. And when it all came down to it, the last game, everything on the line, he pulled away by 9 points. Against Fabiano Caruana. Hikaru had a chance to catch Fabi on the last day, but it was a long shot. And Gukesh struggled down the stretch. He actually had some very good games, but he didn't win a game after the first day, I think. Yeah, he didn't win a game. He only made draws. Wow. I'm looking at, you see it there. So on the first day, Gukesh had a couple of wins, but after that, he only made draws. And that's, I mean, it's normal. Going into this, he was definitely the underdog. Definitely. I mean, this is a monster field. Fabi just won the US Championship, and he's really good at Rapid and Blitz. Hikaru is one of the best in the world at Rapid and Blitz, and Magnus is Magnus. It was a tough field. So I think it's kind of an expected result, although maybe I would have predicted Hikaru would have been in second, but one win literally separates, second and third. And that concludes Clutch Chess, folks. I don't know, we're going to be seeing a lot more of Magnus and Hikaru in the Speed Chess Championship. The same with Fabi. The World Cup is also coming up. Gukesh is actually playing, and people who finish at the top of the World Cup do make it to the Candidates Tournament, which is exciting. But yeah, anytime we get to see these guys play against each other, it's always a treat. That's all. Get out of here.